Hello, Wired Souls! I have been living with lupus and ADHD, so this one's a little personal. But don't worry, it's not gonna turn into my diary. We've still got science to do. Here's the question this whole video is built around. Why can your blood work come back perfect? Your doctor tells you you're stable, and your brain still feels like it's wading through soup. If you're new here, welcome to the chaos. This is where I dig into ADHD and autoimmune disease. We've covered celiac and Hashimoto's. Today, it's lupus. Quick definition first. Lupus is an autoimmune disease. Your immune system, the body's defense squad, gets confused and starts attacking your own healthy tissue instead of germs. Joints, skin, kidneys, pretty much anywhere. Today, we're talking about what it does to your brain. So, let's get into it. Cognitive problems in lupus are common, really common. Depending on the study, somewhere between 40 and 80% of people with lupus deal with some kind of brain fog, memory slips, trouble concentrating, thinking that feels like it's running through molasses, struggling to even start a task, let alone finish it. Sound familiar? If you have ADHD, it probably does. Same symptoms, two completely different conditions. So, let's figure out why. Here's the coolest part of this whole video, in my opinion. Picture a lock and key. Your brain has a specific lock called the NMDA receptor. It's a big deal for learning, memory, and focus. Now, in some people with lupus, the immune system accidentally makes a key that fits that exact lock. Except this key doesn't open anything useful. It jams the lock. Researchers have actually found these wrong keys sitting right inside lupus patients' brain tissue. Not just floating around in the blood, actually inside the brain. Here's where it gets wild. That same lock, the NMDA receptor, shows up again in a completely different field of research. Scientists studying ADHD, who have nothing to do with lupus, also keep finding that this exact lock isn't working properly in ADHD brains. Two separate groups of scientists, two separate diseases, same broken lock. Nobody has done the study that says lupus definitely causes ADHD via this lock. That study doesn't exist yet. But two unrelated research worlds pointing at the exact same part of the brain? That's not nothing. Now, I want to go one layer deeper because this one surprised me. Those lupus antibodies don't automatically reach your brain. Your brain has a security system, a barrier between your bloodstream and your brain that blocks most things from getting in. But research in actual lupus patients using MRI imaging found that this barrier leaks more in people with SLE than in healthy controls. And the more it leaks, the worse the cognitive function. What weakens it? Stress, infection, a flare, high blood pressure. Every time one of those hits, that barrier gets a little more porous. And every time it does, those antibodies get a window. Now here's where it gets practical. When lupus flares up and becomes more active, focus specifically tends to get measurably worse during that window. Not just energy, focus. Multiple studies have shown this. So if you've ever felt like your brain gets foggier during a flare, you weren't imagining it. There's actual data backing you up. Brain scans add another layer. Some lupus patients show real physical changes on imaging, in areas tied to memory, and in the pathways that help different brain regions talk to each other. So in some cases, the fog isn't just a feeling. It's something you could potentially see on a scan. And then there's fatigue. Lupus fatigue isn't just being tired. It's been measured and documented in research, and it's tied to disease activity, not just mood. It drains the tank. ADHD, meanwhile, already makes the ignition unreliable. The whole, I know exactly what I need to do and my brain still won't press go problem. Drain the tank and break the ignition at the same time. Nobody's run the exact study on that combination, but you don't need one to understand why it feels like the worst combination. Okay, let's pump the brakes for a second, because I want to be precise about what all this actually means. This is correlation, not causation. Nobody has proven lupus causes ADHD, or that ADHD changes your lupus risk. What the research does show is that lupus can create real, physical, cognitive symptoms that look a lot like ADHD through inflammation, antibodies, and sometimes visible brain changes. changes. They can exist together, feed into each other, and be almost impossible to untangle on a bad day. Which means if you have both, your brain fog is not one thing. Some days it's lupus, some days it's ADHD, some days it's both. So tangled together that even your doctor can't fully sort it in one appointment. You are not lazy. You are not making excuses. Two different conditions are pulling on the same parts of your brain, and that takes real time and real support to sort out, not sheer willpower. So, what do you actually do with all this? First, if your lupus is controlled on paper, but your brain isn't cooperating, say this to your doctor. Blood work looks fine. Brain doesn't feel fine. That sentence does real work. It points your doctor toward cognitive symptoms specifically, instead of everything getting lumped into one general disease score. Second, here's a simple way to start telling lupus fog and ADHD apart. Lupus-related fog tends to move with your disease. Worse during flares, better when you're stable. ADHD fog tends to be more constant and usually traces back to childhood, long before any diagnosis. Neither is more real than the other. The pattern itself is just useful information. Third, track it. Did your fog get worse this week? Was it during a flare? A simple note on your phone can hand your doctor exactly the kind of pattern that gets missed in a 15-minute appointment. Fourth, and this one's personal. If your lupus is controlled but your brain still isn't right, consider getting assessed for ADHD. That's exactly what I did. Turns out I'd had ADHD all along, just never noticed, because it got buried under the lupus symptoms until my lupus calmed down and the ADHD didn't. A lab result measures what it measures. It doesn't measure you. Numbers don't feel things. You do. And if your experience doesn't match the paperwork isn't the whole story. Tell me in the comments, does your brain fog have a pattern, or does it just show up whenever it feels like it? Because mine definitely has opinions. Next up, we're looking at type 1 diabetes, which honestly surprised me. It has some of the strongest ADHD evidence we've covered in this entire series. I'm off to go take my meds. Editing a video about lupus and then forgetting your own pills would be a little too on the nose. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's tired of being told they look fine. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!